Are we ready?
Mm-hmm.
Good evening, everyone. For Wine with Rita, I have the beautiful Melanie here joining me as her guest, as my guest speaker. Mel, what are you drinking tonight?
I actually have a mimosa because, you know, it's mimosa time anytime.
Yeah. Well, the wonderful Danny Rosso, I saw him on Monday and he gave me this beautiful, he calls it a cracker of a drop, actually. It's called, I can't even pronounce it, Pecorino, and it's from the vineyard, Zacagini, sorry, I can't even pronounce it, Zaccanini, and it's a vineyard in Italy. And I had this at his restaurant last week, and it is absolutely delicious. Now, Danny recommends this with a stone fruit, green apple, and any type of seafood dish. And he says it's sensational. Sorry?
Perfect for Christmas.
Yeah, exactly. Perfect for Christmas. And it's great for the warmer months. And yeah, so tonight's sponsored by Pecorino.
How many more nights ahead will that be sponsored by you as well?
I'm not sure. Look, we're up to the 2 more weeks left before school ends. I think I'll finish it by the end of the week.
They're best fresh, you know.
Exactly. So thank you for joining me tonight on Wine with Weeder. And I guess the purpose of me bringing you on today was just to share your story with the beautiful Jack who I treated, oh God, how long ago, Mel? Over 12 years ago?
He's 19 now, so.
Yeah, I remember meeting him when he was 5. So what's that? Yeah, no more than that. So yeah, probably 11, 12 years ago. And I wanted to initially, just because I was a new grad when I met you, and I wanted to initiate. I was so fresh. So I wanted to start the conversation with when I met you and how, I don't like using the word uncomfortable, but how frightened or how nervous I was when I saw Jack's case history. Because as a new grad, we're in a normal clinical setting, you're given a case history and you speak to the parent over the phone. But when I saw Jack's quite complex medical history, all I could think of was, why wasn't I taught this at university? I don't know how to deal with this. As I just said, you know what, just take it as it comes. But do you remember that first session? It was at 8 o'clock on a Wednesday morning, and he was screaming in the waiting room. And I just thought, what am I going to do this early in the morning?
And I was probably very flustered as well with him.
You were.
He was at the point where if we stepped out of routine, he would lose it. We were very regular visitors up at the Children's Hospital at Westmead, and we would have to park in the same spot.
Yep.
And if we deviated from that, he would just give me a really hard time. And your clinic wasn't actually in the hospital building. It was in a different building. So that was different for him.
Yeah. So I used to work at the most amazing speech pathology clinic called the Speech Language Learning Centre, which is located in the Children's Hospital Medical Centre. So that's quite next door to the Children's Hospital. And the parking there, I remember you had to get there at a specific time to get the specific parking spot on the specific level for Jack. And if you missed that spot, the day was ruined. He would be... it would be a horrendous session. But yeah, and I think you were flustered because you wanted him to present appropriately or in a good state so I can assess him or build that lovely rapport with him. But I don't think he was ready for a new clinician, especially as he had a number of clinicians he had met before.
Yeah. So he started to go to hospital when he was 6 weeks old.
Yeah.
And he was, even to this day, he just doesn't have a very high pain threshold because he has been through so much. And so he just never wanted to be prodded and poked by another new person.
Yeah, and luckily he realised that I don't do that stuff. And then I remember just sitting next to him in the waiting room, and the student in me would think you have to bring him into the clinic, but it was more than just even bringing him into the clinic office or the office space. Just sitting there and connecting with him and just allowing him to feel comfortable in that space was such a valuable lifelong lesson that I learned with Jack, because you don't get taught that at university. You don't oh, sorry, someone's come on. Do I get to see you? Oh, someone tried to join the chat. Sorry, I just got, so I'm thinking, yeah, so I guess he taught me a lot about connection and just following the child's lead and allowing that child to feel, build that beautiful rapport to then transition into the clinic room once he's ready. And that was a valuable lesson for me.
And sometimes your lesson plans just fall
Yeah,
completely
no,
out.
absolutely not. We had no session plan for a few weeks. So do you want to just, you said it's from the hospital from 6 weeks of age. Do you want to give the viewers a brief rundown as to, after he was born, what complications did you experience and where your mindset was and your future plan, or like what you anticipated will be for Jack?
So I was in my early 30s when Jack was born, so I was really young and very inexperienced myself in life. My other two children who were older than him were super easy, so we weren't prepared for this. And he actually turned blue after he was born. They took him away and tried to revive him a bit. The whole team came in, and then in hospital, first night or the second night, I was feeding him, he turned blue again, and they took him away. And then from about 6 weeks old, he got his first respiratory infection. And these continued constantly to the point where we were in hospital because he would just struggle as soon as he got sick. And we would have to go to hospital and he'd be on oxygen therapy and all of that kind of thing. And this happened kind of once a month, every month for a week at a time until at 11 months old, he got whooping cough. And we ended up in there for a month, and he spent his first birthday in there. Through all of this, we got some really fabulous respiratory specialists at the Children's Hospital, and I think I got to the point where I said, enough's enough. We need to get to the bottom of why this child keeps getting sick like this. And thankfully, they were on board with that. So by this time, we'd found out that he was failure to thrive, that he had severe sleep apnea, that he had a condition called laryngotracheomalacia, which was his trachea, his breathing tube would collapse to a figure eight. So it would be, a third of the size that it should be when he was just breathing and not even sick. So that was causing issues on its own. And so when he would sleep, he would stop breathing up to 20 times an hour.
Wow.
This
oxygen to the brain.
This then caused carbon dioxide being retained in his system. And so he then had, we then realized that he wasn't actually talking very much by this stage, not very much verbal communication. And we've gotten to the point now where we realize that he had a severe language delay.
How old was this stage? So around 2?
No, it was probably a little bit older than that when daycare said, look, he doesn't actually communicate. And even to this day, Jack has hidden that and masked that really well with others. So we started down, some more testing with the doctors and the team that we had. And they, this led to an intellectual disability diagnosis as well. And I mean, I have my own theories, and I couldn't tell you whether the oxygen and the carbon dioxide maybe, I don't know what came first, with him. I think
I agree.
he had about 30 hospital admissions by the time he was 3.
Wow. And remind me, did he have enlarged adenoids or tonsils? Because I remember him being quite hyponasal. And was it the tonsils, or did he have a cleft palate? Or no, he didn't have a cleft palate.
He had his tonsils and adenoids removed 3 times. I think the first one was maybe after about 18 months, but the earlier you get them, removed, the more chance there is that they can regrow. And he regrew 3 times.
Wow.
But then every time they shaved them back, this then caused a bit of a hole in the back of his palate, which increased nasal tones. And it was to the point where we couldn't understand him very well, or others couldn't understand him very well.
And then is that when you got connected with the cleft palate team at the Children's Hospital with David Fitzwilliam?
Yeah. So he was part of the respiratory team as well. He was part of Jack's overall team. And then they decided, I think he was about 9 or 10 when they did the pharyngeal flap to repair that hole in the back of his palate.
Yeah. So you were advised by daycare that he's having difficulty communicating. He's about 3-4 years of age, and then you've approached his team at the hospital where they then further diagnosed him with a severe language delay and was it a moderate intellectual disability or mild one?
It was mild at that point.
Yeah.
And our first assessment was before he went to kindergarten, and that was a fairly stark comment by the physician at the time. She was, that threw us a lot because it wasn't how we saw him. That wasn't how he presented to us, and we've never made excuses for him. You know, we were told he'd never finish school. He'd need to be in a unit. He wouldn't be able to go mainstream. This was kind of before he'd even started school, and it was really hard. It was very hard to take in.
Of course, especially where he's being your youngest and he's presenting to you where he's getting his needs met, he's expressed himself effectively, but then all these health professionals are coming to you with all these negative outcomes or possibilities. And I guess as a mother, that makes you incredibly concerned. But I guess also for you, Mel, which one thing where I feel I connected with you a lot, you advocated for him in a way that I've never seen a mother advocate before. Now, remember, I'm a new grad, and you were one of my first clients. And the way that you just
have you seen that since?
I have. I have seen it since, but I guess I have you as that model as to what can be done for a child and the strength that you need to push endlessly for your child as well.
It's really tiring. But you know, the wins along the way make it all worthwhile. You absolutely have to advocate. And the doctors always said to me, you know, you are his greatest advocate. And at the Children's Hospital, I know that they listen to mums.
Yeah.
You know, if you come in and you say my child's not herself, then those nurses and doctors listen to you.
Yeah, they do. They do.
But no, absolutely. And, you know, right from the very beginning when that psychologist said, you know, Jack's this and Jack's that, I kind of went, well, you know, that's your label, that's not our label, and that's not how we see him, and so we're going to do all this stuff to get him by.
And I guess regardless whatever the diagnosis a child presents with, whether it's intellectual disability, autism, they are still your child, and you treat them the same. We treat them the same as to regardless of the diagnosis, but we continually advocate for their voice, for them to express themselves clearly too. So you now have to start school, and you want the best education for him and the best support that he can access. Talk me through that, particularly going through private school. How was that, and what hurdles did you encounter?
So I was in the Catholic system, and I had 2 children go through that school already. They were still there. Yeah. And those teachers had known Jack since he was born. Okay. They knew of his struggles. They knew of his health issues. They were amazing. So kids go through orientation at kindergarten. They went to him. They went to daycare, and they spent a day in his daycare room. And there were 3 of them. There was the assistant principal. There was the special ed teacher, and I think the kindergarten teacher that he was going to get. And they went and saw him in his environment he had been for 4 years, and he was really comfortable. And they just watched him and interacted with him, and they came away with an amazing insight into him. When he started school, they then connected with you. And you
I remember Jane. Jane? Yeah, Jane. Yeah, Jan. Did I meet Jack in kindy or year 1?
Kindergarten, I think.
Kindy? I think it was either end of kindy or beginning of year 1. Either way, but I loved working really closely with Jan. Jane or Jan?
Jan. Schroeder.
Because Jen Schroeder, that's it. The way she just supported his language goals and worked alongside me as his speech pathologist, it was just quite refreshing, and it just instilled the multidisciplinary approach that every child needs to ensure that their language skills are also supported in the academic growth as well. And having that partner in the system with working with her to support Jack, it was actually quite refreshing to have and quite a beautiful experience. And I really feel we need more of that these days.
I always had many people involved in his team from all different parts of what he needed. And I think it was really important. And they got together regularly and discussed him.
Yeah, we
and
did. I remember that.
It was awesome. That's exactly what we needed. And I couldn't have done it if you all weren't talking to each other.
Yeah, that's the beauty of working as a team. Like, it's not just speech pathologist by itself. I have my input, the teacher has their input, and working together is for the sole purpose of the child, right?
Yeah.
Now, talk me through. I remember probably before I even get to that, I remember just really connecting with Jack in a way I feel that made his learning and his language progress was really tapping into his interests. And thankfully, we shared the same interest for supporting the same football team. But it was quite beautiful because Jack taught me about a field that I'm not familiar with. And I felt like that empowered him, especially as he's had many professionals telling him what to do. So it was actually nice for him to tell me something, which I thought was a lovely companionship that we had.
He's super passionate about all the things that he loves.
Yeah. Yeah, and he was so in love with Justin Bieber as well, and we bounced off the idea of Justin Bieber, Wanderers, and Parramatta Eels, and somehow we just generated our language goals around that. And I really feel, if any new grads are watching, or even first year students, really tapping into a child's interest and following their lead with that, and then linking in the language goals or speech goals to really fulfill the child's communication at the same time.
It just makes it a little bit easier to get them to talk.
Yeah,
when it's a topic that they're familiar with.
Yeah, it is 100%. 100%.
Rather than a new topic like a sloth, for example.
I remember sloths, exactly right. So I remember working with Jack on following directions and just building his vocabulary. And there was one stage where, was it the school or somebody told you you should be looking at a different school to help him out?
Yeah.
When was that? Was that you?
They wanted me to move to somewhere like St. Gabriel's was the school at the time. And
St. Gabriel's was you want to explain what St. Gabriel's was?
Yeah, so it was traditionally it was a school for hearing impaired children.
Yeah.
And then it also included children on the spectrum, so autistic children. And we took Jack there and we had a look, and it just didn't fit Jack.
Yeah.
He was not like those children. He just wasn't, and I actually think that it would have sent him backwards.
Yeah. I remember having that discussion with you. I think he was year 2, and it was, well, no, he doesn't need the support that those children were receiving. He just needed a bit more support in the school system. And the way you advocated for him, Mel, and you pretty much didn't take no as an answer. You give me other options that we can explore. And if they weren't successful, then let's look at other avenues. But I feel your endless advocacy for him and supporting him always was just so beautiful to see. And I feel like every parent needs to know to have that.
I knew my child, and I knew what we could support him to do in real life. You don't learn everything from a school. He's never been stopped from doing anything. He's at the Post Malone concert tonight in the mud.
Oh, is he? And look at
exactly. We've never limited him. We've never expected less of him. He's always come everywhere with us, wherever we've gone.
Yeah.
Admittedly, he would much prefer to be at home.
Yeah.
But he is a voracious reader of news. he sits, if that, if there's a horrible incident in the world, he will just sit and devour it, good or bad.
Yeah.
He'll tell you, he'll often start a conversation with, and he's clearly already had half of it in his head, but I think we all do that. And my husband will say, what are you talking about? You need to tell us the rest of the story.
Yeah.
He'll come to us at night time, and he'll tell you all the things that all the news and things that he's watched on TV, and he'll be able to tell you all about it. Yeah, he misses the nuances, and he still misses the nuances in society now. But and probably now that he's a little bit older, you've got to protect him just that little bit more than what he was earlier in his life.
Yeah. Yeah. So I continued treating him till I had, was it my second daughter? I can't remember. Was it Maria?
Well, yeah, you went off on maternity leave with your first child.
That's right.
And you came back.
And then I came back, and then I left after I had my second daughter. So he was probably around year 4 by then, I think.
Yeah.
So talk me through the transition into high school, because I guess you were in quite a safety bubble with the team that he had at pre-primary school, and then high school has its difficulties in itself, and shifting from becoming a supported learner to teaching him to becoming an independent learner. How was that in navigating the support that he needed?
Primary school was a super safe place for him, and he was there by himself for most of the time, for all but I think 2 years, but it was really safe, and we had it really down pat. But when we got to high school, I think the same situation, we were really prepared, and the primary school that we were with were very supportive of him going to that high school. His brother was there, and they were ready for us as well. We had to do some more assessments with psychologists and things, and that had been the first time we'd done that since the first bad experience when he was 5 or something.
How did this experience go?
This one was better. They don't have connections with the children when they do these assessments, so
they don't.
They never get the best out of them. And I think, they're very similar assessments to what you would have done with him in terms of the WISC and so on. But they don't know the child. So they just don't know what he might have been thinking when he said that. They have to say a particular word to get it right. But it's that they know the stuff.
Or even if you parked at the wrong spot at the hospital, like how much that would have impacted him. So there's all this background influences that can impact a child at that moment. And it's really important when you're assessing a child that you keep that in mind and set an optimal assessing environment to get the best outcome, or the most realistic outcome for the child as well.
So I think we actually didn't get an assessment till about year 8. And at that point, because the assessor didn't know Jack, and Jack was in unfamiliar territory, he had shut down, he wasn't answering the questions, they had then diagnosed him with a moderate intellectual disability, and I knew that was not right. But that then had a flow-on effect to a whole host of other things that impacted what he could do at school.
Can you give an example, like because of that, what impacted him?
The classes that they put him in, the children that he was then around, it did actually lend towards more funding for them, but that didn't necessarily go directly to Jack either. But he had a learning support teacher at school who was brilliant. They had the best relationship, and right up until year 12, he just looked out for him, and he was great.
So it's interesting because when Jack was born or younger, they said he won't finish school and he won't cope at school. Looking back at those comments that were made to you, what would you tell them if you knew what you knew when he was 15 to them?
Jack was never late for school.
Jack
caught the bus by himself. He catches the bus now by himself to get places on time. He always had the right books in his bag. Might not have done his homework, but I don't think that had anything to do with what he was. He loved school. He was social. He knew everyone at school, all ages. But high school was different. He didn't have the people around him, or as many people around him who looked after him and knew knew what Jack was.
And how was
So it was
that as a mum, knowing that you weren't there in that environment to protect him, but the safety blanket that he had in primary school, how was that for you as a mum in high school? Was it just a part of you that I have to let him be on his own and find his feet independently?
I have, and I often have to pull up my husband and say, "You've got to let him do this."
Yeah.
We're not far away. We can jump in if we have to, but you've got to let him
Mm,
do this.
mm,
And again, it was a little bit of a safety net in that his older brother was there for 2 years.
mm, mm,
So, we knew that he'd be okay. And those older boys, all of his brother's friends, there was never going to be anything happen to Jack while they were at school.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, like they were his, I guess that gave you comfort as well,
Yeah.
knowing that he had that peer support there to guide him, and he was safe, I guess, from anyone being negative to him because he's protected by the big brothers, you know.
And because of his language disorder, he's a little
Yeah.
bit naive when people say things to him.
Yeah.
So he sometimes, the bullying kind of rolls off his back, which is not a bad thing
Yeah.
either.
I guess for everyone watching, Jack was diagnosed with a severe receptive and language disorder, and Mel also said moderate to mild intellectual disability. So for a child in high school, that means they will most likely have difficulty understanding the curriculum if it's not simplified for them, a difficulty explaining themselves effectively, and I think also for Jack, understanding things between the lines, or like listening comprehension and reading comprehension tasks were a challenge for him because he needed information that was quite concrete and straightforward for him to understand. Yeah. And I guess, like you said earlier, he masked it quite well with his personality because he's got such an infectious, and he's quite a popular kid, like with all his interests, and because of his big brother, it was like a safety mask for him to just carry through socially.
He still does that. So
Yeah.
if I don't tell someone that Jack's a little bit different, he no one would ever know. It comes up in a conversation, and someone will kind of go, well, that comment was a bit strange, or why did he do that? So they're the only real tips that you get that something's off, but you would never get exactly what it was or how bad it is. And look, my leveler in hospital was always that the child in the bed next to him was always far worse off than us.
Yeah.
And I know that he's not as bad as other children can be.
Yeah.
Sometimes sometimes it would be easier if he presented not as well as what he does, because people would give him a little bit more allowance for things. But because he presents quite normally, people just don't get it.
I understand. I get that. So when Thomas left high school, how were you feeling, and how did Jack navigate the schooling system independently?
He was great. He had someone with him most lessons, and his work was all scaffolded for him.
Yeah.
So he had different learning goals than others. He still had to do the same curriculum. He still sat in the same classes. He just had different learning goals. So he was great. He thrives on routine.
Yeah, he does.
He really thrives on routine. So he knew that, he caught that bus. He knew the kids on the bus. He was awesome. He forgot his sports bag on the bus a couple of times, but, I think Thomas did too.
Yeah, so. I think who doesn't do that? I would do that to same thing too. Oh dear.
The routine is what was awesome for him.
Yeah.
And it was written down. He had a timetable.
Yeah. And I guess look how you've applied all the strategies that my speech therapy, occupational therapy, just shows all these strategies that we implement not only help them when they're younger, but it carries through with them throughout their life. The routine, writing down instructions, having structure supports a child to build their independence, but also to build their communication skills too.
Even now when we text him, if he's home during the day, we'll text him things to do. But they're really short, sharp instructions, and it's not a long text. It's one line. you know,
Yeah.
parts of, and, you know, it's a 3-step process. It's not a 10-step process.
Yeah. I just want to tell everyone, so Jack was my client for about 6 to 7 years, and Jack, he loved Justin Bieber so much that he picked my father-daughter dance. And I remember, like, because with Jack, once you tap into his interest, you can build on his reasoning skills. And I was picking my father-daughter dance. I said, what song shall I pick? And I'll never forget, he said,
He knew
pick
it
the
straight,
song. Sorry?
he knew it straight away. He knew exactly
He
what
just
song you
said,
should
he
use.
just said, pick Believe by Justin Bieber, because he wrote that song for his mum. And I didn't listen to Justin Bieber then. And I played it in the session. I think I was in tears, bawling out my eyes, because the song has such a beautiful sentimental value as a parent, that we're always believing in our children and always pushing and advocating as much for them. But I guess as a clinician, it teaches us that we need to continually advocate the best in our capacity to help these children find their voice and to access the curriculum as best as they can, regardless how many hurdles that we encounter. And I just thought it was such a beautiful moment that a child that presents with significant communication disorder and intellectual disability was able just to tap into his heart and know what song to pick. And it's such a memorable moment in my career. And I think I was crying every time I heard that song for about 3 weeks, because it just hit home. And every time I sometimes just need to sit back and reflect, I just put that song on and I'm like, oh, geez, Jack, you really hit a nerve. And I think everyone watching now will probably go on YouTube and type in Believe by Justin Bieber and have a shed a tear.
And imagine you dancing with your dad.
Oh, God, imagine, yeah. Or my husband dancing with my daughters. Oh, geez, it's something I don't want to think about. They're not
Yeah,
getting married.
they'll all have to use it.
Yeah, exactly right. So now, how did you feel when Jack had to start at the HSC? And what was in your mind? Like, how could he cope with such the load of
So Jack
Jack?
didn't do his
He did
exams.
the
No.
HSC. So talk to me what they did for him.
He just finished. So
Mm.
just like anyone that doesn't do an ATAR, you don't do your exams.
Yeah. Okay. So he
So
finished,
he didn't need to.
and so at the graduation ceremony, I think you invite. No, you didn't invite me. You sent me some images. How was that? To think this young boy, the possibilities that people didn't expect of him, and now he's finishing year 12. How did you feel in that moment? Oh, you and John, your husband.
It was actually really scary because we didn't know
Really?
what the future held for him.
Yeah.
We had
That
lots
security
of
wasn't there.
things in our head that we thought he could do,
Yeah.
but 12 months on, he's still finding his feet, and he
Mm,
does get upset about that.
mm,
Fingers crossed, we think he might have landed something.
mm.
We're just waiting on the paperwork to come through, but we'll just wait. We'll just wait for that to come.
I just thought, okay, for that.
Yeah, so that will make a huge difference to him
So
if that happens.
how so he's now
He's
18 or 19,
19 now.
and how does he feel? Do you feel he still needs that support that you gave him in high school to help him, or you letting go so he can further develop his independence? That's that little bit more.
I think it's just different. So, for example, on Saturday night, he loves the Wanderers, right? And he's a member of the Wanderers. And there was the big derby this weekend, Sydney FC and the Wanderers played at Allianz Stadium. So we let him catch the train from Parramatta into the city, and he was with friends, and so he got to the stadium by himself, and then they finished late. So rather than him catch the train all the way back, I said, well, you catch the light rail into the Queen Victoria building, and we'll pick you up from there, rather than us drive all the way in the traffic to the stadium. And I had him on Find My iPhone, so I tracked him the whole way, and he rang me, and he's like, where do I get on the tram from the stadium? I said, well, people will be walking that way. Find a policeman and ask them. And, my husband was not happy about it. And I said, you've got to let him do this.
Let him do things, yeah.
And he won't have to ring me the whole way to say, oh, well, I'm at this stop, how many more stops? Like, he'll know next time. And it's
exactly.
You're still supporting them. You're just supporting them in a different way. And you're having those conversations around the dinner table about world events, and you're building on his language skills that way. So it never stops.
No, no. And I guess how you said go find a police officer to help guide you, but I guess you can also say look at the people wearing the Wanderers shirts, to follow them. They could lead you to where they need to go as well. Yeah,
Yeah. So,
yeah.
and he's been in the city enough times with me that he's pretty familiar with the area. He knows what
Mm.
the Queen Victoria building was, so he know where to get off. And so, it's just giving them those opportunities to be out and about and learn.
Yeah, and letting go just that little bit. Like I'm treating a lot of children under 2 years of age, and I guess being a mum myself, if you resonate why parents do everything for their children because of that fear, in particular with feeding. I know a few parents, they still feed their child at the age of 2, and I say I can understand why you're doing that because you want your child to be fed. You don't want them to be hungry or to feel that they're not getting fulfilled. But the impact that we have or that you have now at such a young age will impact them as an adult, and understanding that just stepping back that little bit, letting them explore with food, letting them learn how to feed themselves will reduce the difficulties of them learning to feed themselves later on.
Not only
And
the
I guess one thing
feeding, not only the feeding. I mean, Jack went through OT as
that's
well, so it's
right.
those motor skills.
And I guess with you, Mel, what my message was is that you knew he had these difficulties. You knew that you could have supported him
Yeah,
100%, but you stepped back just that bit so he can build his independence. And I feel if you were that helicopter mum throughout his whole schooling, he wouldn't have coped very well on that
no,
train over the weekend.
no,
So,
that's right.
and I guess parents need to continually recognise that what we do now when they're younger impacts them to becoming an independent adult when they're older
It's funny.
as well.
I sometimes feel like we, maybe I present as not a very caring mother, because
Sorry, I'm
I'm
laughing. You do have
a stone face.
you have a stone face, and I guess meeting you for the first time, and I've got Jack freaking out in the waiting room, and then you've got your stone face. I'm thinking, smile, Rita, just smile. Hopefully, she'll like you.
The world will smile back at you.
And I'm thinking, oh gosh, I've got this really complex kid here, and then I've got Stone Woman. What can I do so she can like me?
Yeah, no,
But yeah, you've
you
got such a beautiful heart, Mel.
it just
Like
comes out
you're,
differently. But even with the other kids, I didn't make their school lunches because if I got hit by a bus and I didn't come home, they had to be able to do it themselves.
mhm.
And I think that's a little bit what I'm like with Jack, as
Yeah,
much as I
and I
can
guess
be.
you need to be like that. I wouldn't swear on here, you know that it's a resting bib face. That's what it is.
I would call it a stone face, not a
Let's call it a stone face. Let's call it a stone face.
my poker
Um,
face. It's my
that's
poker face.
your poker face, and you do have. I know when you've had a bad day because that
You
poker
hide
face comes on. I'm like, okay,
behind.
what's happened with Jack? What's happened? What's happened with your daughter, and so forth. Um, so I guess we know. I guess as Jack had incredible difficulties and all these medical appointments and hurdles along the way, but I guess the comforting thing is that or the messages that we can resonate with, continually advocate for your child, continually build your child's independence, and know and put faith and hope in his team and build that team to support the child as
Yeah.
much as you can. If you were to go back to when I met you in that office space on a 8 o'clock on a Wednesday morning at 8 o'clock, what would you tell yourself, or what would you tell me as a clinician at that time?
Uh, I would smile back at you, and I would just say to both of us, we'll be
We'll
fine.
be
And,
fine.
we'll do the best we can for him.
Yeah, exactly right. If you were to meet a mother now who is in the rut of what you experience with the endless medical appointments, the sleep apnea, the diagnosis that was coming out of it everywhere, what would you tell her? Or what
Uh,
advice would you tell these parents?
Look, it's not so much Dr. Google, but it's inform
Yeah,
yourself.
yeah.
It's do your research. It's be comfortable with what you believe in,
Ask
and
questions.
ask questions. Be
Mm,
comfortable with your doctors, and if you're not, ask for a different doctor.
yeah.
Don't rest on a first opinion. Get a
Mm,
second opinion.
mm,
But believe in how you feel. Believe your gut feel.
Follow your gut always. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I guess now Jack's 19. Where do you see, or what do you see the next few years would be for him?
What I want for him
Yeah.
is just to have a steady job.
Mm.
And so at the moment he's going to the gym. He's doing PT sessions 3 mornings a week,
Mm-hmm.
and then he'll go back those same afternoons. So he's doing 6 sessions, and the routine is really great for him,
Mm-hmm.
and the social interaction is really great for him. So all I want for him right now is to have a steady job where he gets up in the morning and he's got a purpose in life and he goes and he earns money.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
I
for the
get
next couple
that.
of years, that's all I want him to cement.
Yeah.
Get
And then that routine
experience,
and stability. Yeah.
get experience, and then get the next job.
Yeah.
But as I said, we've
Exactly right.
never limited him, and we've never said, no, you can't, that's not something that you'll be able to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Like as Justin Bieber's song was, believe, right? Believe in your child and believe in yourself as a parent that everything will be okay.
And be a unit.
Yeah. Be a unit for your child. Is there anything, has anyone got any questions that they wanted to ask Mel before we wrap up this live today? So if anyone, just type it in the question box. But is there anything else you wanted to add, Mel, before we finish up for tonight?
Look, it can be really hard. It can be really heartbreaking. It can be really upsetting, and it can be disheartening. There's probably not really ever light at the end of the tunnel, but your child's always your child, and you're doing the best that you can, and you need to be kind on yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. I had a question I wanted to ask you. What support did you get? Now you had that stone face, but did you feel like you were sinking and you needed extra support?
I had doctors in his team that I could call,
Yeah.
and they would listen and they would answer questions and they were available to me.
Mm.
I had a husband who believed in what I was doing for Jack,
Yeah.
and he never questioned me. Never once did he ever question me. So I was extremely lucky. I don't feel like I get a sinking feeling. I don't feel like I ever was feeling like I was sinking, but it just gets me down that Jack won't be the same as his brother and sister. That gets you in the chest, and your chest tightens, and that's the worst part of it.
And I guess it's the unknown, right? You don't know how he'll cope in this new role. You don't know whether he'll thrive or he may have difficulties. And I guess the challenges will always be there, but you just have to pick yourself up and believe that everything is going to be okay.
And give it a go.
Yeah.
Like we just keep giving stuff a go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Something will stick at some point.
Yeah. No one's written any questions. So I guess to wrap up this wonderful conversation, every morning when I walk, I ask my girlfriends, what's the word that you want to add for your day to make your day better? Or what word would you remove from your day to add clarity or peace to your day? So I'm going to ask you, Mel, for tomorrow, what word will you add to your day to make it better?
Look, it's just been Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
And I sent lots of messages to friends, and I think for me every day you just have to be thankful and grateful and joyful for what you have.
Yeah. Absolutely.
The person in the bed next to Jack was always worse off than Jack.
Yeah. I love that mindset. The child next to Jack in the hospital is always worse off. So your words are grateful, gratitude, thankful, and what was the other one?
Joyful.
Hopeful. Yeah, they're beautiful. I love that. What was my word today? I think my word was kindness. Every act of kindness is never wasted. So always be kind.
But you are always kind.
Oh, thanks, Mel. You are a darling. And I think the beautiful aspect out of all of this is that after how long we remain the closest of friends, and I know I can call you and say, hey, here's a business idea, what do you think? Or you can just call me and tell me something remarkable has happened to Jack, and the feelings that I had back when he picked that wedding song for me are still there, because he honestly, as a new grad, he left a footprint on my heart, and he taught me so many wonderful skills that all clinicians should experience, and adds purpose to what we do in our role, and why we do our role, really. And I always keep thinking of Jack and the why. He's my why. He's
Why
the
you
why
do
with
what you
what I
do.
do, why I do
He's
what I
my
do.
why too.
Yeah, he's my why. He's definitely my why. So this is the wrap up for 2023. I'll be finishing work next week, so I won't be having any wines with Weeda till next year. Thankfully, I have a lineup of a number of guests for next year. So if anyone knows anyone that would love to come share their story to support parents on my page, or they want to share their own story, feel free just to send me a message, and I would be more than happy to slot them in to spread the word, because it's all about teaching people and hearing people's experiences so other parents can feel relatable, safe, and understood as well. So that's the purpose of this segment.
Thank you, Rita. Thank you for
Thank
asking
you.
me to come on.
No,
Thank you for always
pleasure. I
being on
adore
the
you.
phone for me.
You
And thank you
are
for
more than
joining me.
welcome.
Yeah.
You're more than welcome. Have a beautiful Christmas, and I have very exciting news. I'm going to launch something very big on Friday. So, Marcel, you know what this is, so keep it hush hush. I'm very excited to announce something on Friday. So watch this space, guys, and enjoy. Have a lovely evening, guys, and a safe New
Bye.
Year. Beautiful Christmas. Oh, is that your dog?
Sorry. That was the full stop.
I was like, stop it. We're finished.
We're done.
We're done.
Bye, guys.
All right, Mel, you know what? I'm going to actually take you to Sala, and we're going to have the pecorini together with Danny, because it is delicious. Actually, I'm going to have another glass before bed. So have a great one, sweetie. You take care.
Bye.
See you. Bye.